Hey everybody, in this video we are going to be making a metal case for this tape measure. And when I say case, I mean we are going to take off all the plastic and just reuse the guts from inside it. In addition to selling standard products, one of my longer term goals for Design the Everything is to have an array of products that I can white label for people. Meaning they can come to me and customize something that I already have an existing design that I know works, make some aesthetic changes, and then they can sell it under their own name. My first white labelable product is these metal meeples. This tape measure is going to be my second one. At the request of a customer, I already have orders for these. I already have a quick proof of concept design mocked up in CAD. Ironically, I didn't have any measuring instruments with me when I took this apart except for the tape measure itself. I didn't even have my pair of calipers with me. We're going to quickly adjust this model and then spit it out on the 3D printer to see if it's even remotely functional. When I first designed this, I did it parametrically, which means that instead of hard coding in the numbers, I just put in variables that I can come back now and then tweak. That part's done, it looks pretty good. Oh no, I just broke it. Shoot. All right, does it fit together? Now I did accidentally break off those little prongs. So this isn't going to be a fully realistic test, but let's see. Oh, it's very tight. It's very tight. Yeah, it's not gonna work. What happens if I just break off that other prong? All right, I need to make it bigger. The inside boss may be a little bit big too, so let's take that down. Will it tape measure? It's not gonna retract because I don't have a thing to grab the spring. I mean, it kind of functions. Okay, let's tweak the design and reprint. This is why I got the 3D printer. All right, new prototype. Let's see what this looks like. That's promising. It's in there. All right, well that seems to work. I still only have half of it, so it doesn't really hold itself together. Out of this 3D printed plastic, the little internal mechanism that grabs the spring doesn't grab it, it just breaks off. In general, it's about the right size and shape. I need to change the size of that little boss in there. It's still too large. I was supposed to change that before this prototype, but I forgot. I think the spool has just the right amount of wiggle in there. It has enough to have a little bit of freedom, but not so much that it'll be loose and you'll be able to like shake it when it's put together. Let's do another one. I've spent basically all day working on the tape measure. I now have a fully functional 3D printed prototype of the final design that I'm very happy with, except for a few small tweaks to the little finger hole at the bottom. When I was looking at the cam, I realized this hole here is gonna be a problem when I go to machine it. This part is mostly hollow, which means when I machine it, it's gonna try to deflect and deform and resonate with the tool, which will just give me bad parts and bad finishes. My solution to that was a little 3D printed insert that I can just slide right here into the part. I 3D printed the little plugs so they were hollow, and now I'm gonna fill them with UV resin, which I have a bunch of on hand due to my experiments with UV resin work holding. I'm pretty sure I can do this all in one pour without any incident. So this will give me a completely solid part without adding any print time or using too much filament. I hope the resin will cure in this thick of a layer. I think it should though. It may just take longer under the light. There we go, that should be ready in just a couple minutes here. It is about a week after that last clip that I recorded, and I now have a nice little graveyard of 3D printed parts. But after that, I also have two functional, at least 3D printed tape measures. There's some minor tweaks between the two of them, but they do work and it's pretty close to my final design. I also buy every single one of the compatible tape measures at my local Menards, and I only have 7. These are gonna go to all of my Patreon of the month members for this month, and I have about 11 right now. So I need to go to a different Menards and buy all of their tape measures to be able to, fulfill all of my obligations. My goal has been to send my Patreons metal versions of this tape measure this month, though I did ask them, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get these done in time, so there's a possibility that they are gonna get 3D printed ones, which work fine, and they look fine. But I would really rather get the metal ones if I can. So I'm going to start the machining process for those now. I checked with my Patreons, and they are okay with getting a 3D printed plastic tape measure this month. I was a little bit worried that they would feel cheaped out, but they were all fine with it. However, my goal is still to get them metal ones. I'm gonna try to machine some of these out of aluminum today. I've spent hours on the cam, and I'm hoping it'll work. This is my cam setup for the tape measures. Notice I'm gonna be cutting 2 of them out of 1 piece of stock, the left side and the right side. Then I basically just start facing, do some roughing. I finish all of the inside surfaces here with the flat tool path. And then I rough the rest of the way, clean up the outside, clean out some little extra pieces of material that were left there, deburr the tops, and then lastly cut in this little chamfer here. From there, I'm gonna flip into a dual station vise setup with my Saunders Machine Works mod vices. I will be cutting 3 different soft jaws to make this happen, but there's pretty minimal machining left on this side. I adaptive away the top hat. I do a spiral finishing tool path, a ramp for my chamfers, and then a combination of a ramp and a scallop to get my big old chamfers sorted out. Total machine time is about 50 minutes for one of these. I'll be making these from 6061 aluminum, at least for the prototype of the month members. The final units may be brass. Here is my setup so far. I've got my super glue arbor down here, which I made in a previous video. The stock is gonna go on here, and then I can use the 1, 2, 3 block just to line up the side. I'll probe that in every time, so positioning isn't super important. And I have already sandblasted the back of this just a little bit to give it some more grip on the super glue. Then I have my Saunders Machine Works mod vise set up in dual station mode. I still need to cut the soft jaws, but I'm gonna wait until I have the first op part done. Well, that was scary. Part came loose. Oh gosh. It looks like it did in my end mill. It broke off a fairly large corner of that flute. And the part's definitely a goner. Maybe the adhesive work holding isn't good enough here. One thing that's interesting is this little super glue plate doesn't have any of the super glue on it. It's all on the part that I sandblasted. So maybe this grid pattern wasn't enough to give it tooth. Maybe it needs something more. I'm gonna make 2 changes. One, I'm gonna use this Scotch-Brite to scuff up the surface a little bit, hopefully giving the super glue a little more tooth. And then also I'm gonna get rid of that 3/8 tool in this process and just do it all with a 1/4 inch tool to reduce tool pressure. Actually, I lied to you. I'm gonna use the same tool, but I'm going to cut my feeds and speeds way down. As I was looking at the code, I realized I only have 1 of those 1/4 inch end mills, and so if I break that, I'm out of luck on this project. So for safety, we're gonna do more with the bigger tool and just very conservative feeds. Let's try this again. And this time I'm not gonna do a time lapse just in case something goes horribly wrong. This part is bound and determined to give me a heart attack. I have no idea what just happened, but there was a nice little rapid straight down in Z into that hole there. Tool's okay, part's okay, nerves frayed. Just something wrong with the programming that I need to figure out. That little squiggle right there, that was our Z plunge. I simulated this earlier and it all looks good, but I made some slight tweaks and it must have added just that little bit of tool path that I was not expecting. So that was terrifying. Okay, everything's good here. We have new code. Let's try this again. So I think it's time to find the new work holding method. This is not cutting it. The tool's okay this time. I didn't even hear it come off. All right, it is another bright, new, shiny day, and I could not figure out how to fix this problem last night. After talking to some friends, I figured out, well, they figured out, that it was coming off of the little fixture plate because it was warping, because I was removing so much material off the top and not off the bottom. The way we're gonna fix this is by using the same setup, but at the very beginning of the program, we're going to drill some holes in here and use those with some threaded fasteners to secure this to the fixture. I have another piece of material loaded right now. The super glue is curing. Now, we're doing this next part a little bit backwards because we don't actually have the threaded holes in that fixture plate yet. There's probably a better way of doing this, but I needed that material on top so that I could probe it, so that I could locate the holes that are gonna go in the fixture plate. So I have the material up there. We are going to just drill and tap straight through it and then roll into our regular program and run it. And then I spent all morning today working on cam, and I basically just modeled in the screw holes. That'll just let me tell Fusion, hey, don't run into these, there's something there. We should be all set up to go. Let's assume the machinist's stance and actually load the correct program before hitting go. We drilling? Seems to be working. Onto the thread mill. Well, that toolpath worked, but I did a dumb. If you look at this fixture, you may notice that this little super glue arbor here is smaller than my stock. That is because this came from the same width stock as this, except this has machined edges all the way around. It also makes it easier to like pry parts off if you need to. These holes land neatly inside the fixture over here. However, there is extra overhang in the back here, and these holes only half hit this. So these aren't gonna be useful for anything, these back two holes here. I think I'm just gonna leave it and not put fasteners in those holes there. I'm hoping that just having these 2 points here will be enough to counteract the tendency for this to warp, but I would have felt a lot more secure with those. Oh well, we should be good to go. Let's try it with the new method. I may have missed that recording, but the screws are in their nice little counter bores and hopefully won't get ran into at any point in this process. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've done it. We have a finished part here. Though something that's a little bit scary, I'm not sure it's gonna show up on camera, but like, I can tell that it warps still. And I'm pretty sure the only thing holding it in at this point is my 2 screws. So it probably would have been really nice to get those other screws in here. Fortunately, I don't need to do a large amount of production on these right now. There's many better ways. But this will do for now, and we can move on to op 2. Off camera, I whipped up 2 more of these, so now I have a total of 3. The only problem is, on this one, I broke an end mill halfway through and I didn't realize it, so this isn't gonna quite work for a real tape measure, but that does at least give me a setup piece that I can use to get the backside dialed in. Now it's time to start doing my soft jaws. I'm gonna start with this one here. One down, 1 to go. That one's good. And number 3. Number 3's done. To get these in, it should just be a matter of sliding the mod vices closer. Of course, I need to move it 1 more hole forwards. I ended up using my bandsaw to kind of trim this blank a little bit. Initially, it started off so that there'd be less hat that I'd have to machine away, which is always kind of problematic because it can vibrate and grab and cause issues. However, I would have had to do it anyway because to tighten the Saunders Machine Work vise, you have to have access to the top. So, happy little accident. We have clearance anyway. Let's pretend it was intentional. Let's hope this second op works. Let's hope the second op goes a little bit more smoothly than the first one. That's not even remotely in the right place. Let's try that again. Is that gonna... I need to raise that up just a little bit so it clears the screw. All right, we found another problem. First tool went pretty good. Finishes look great. It didn't have any problems. There's no chatter or anything. But these screws are sticking up too far, and they're in the way of the tool path. Now, fortunately, I can get those a little bit farther down. The problem is I have to unclamp the part in order to do that. Basically, I have to unclamp, screw those down, move the mod vise, and then re-clamp it. It shouldn't be an issue, I don't think. But moving a part in the middle of an operation is always a nightmare. But I'm gonna do it anyway. All right, that should work. Let's try this again. We should technically have a functional tape measure at this point, though I'm noticing there's a little bit of step between the edge of the fillet and the top of the tape. And I think that may be because I repositioned them and possibly because I squished them too much when I did that. So I'm going to try rerunning the flat part of this, the top finishing part, and see if that kind of evens it out a little bit. Well, that kind of worked, except now it went too deep. So I'm definitely going to be careful about how much I tighten these next time. It is another new day, and I think today we are going to try to make these same tape measures, but better. Our first attempt went all right, but there's a lot to improve on. On this go around, the only thing that I'm going to change is how tightly I clamp this. I think I over-tightened the vise last time, bowed the tape measure when the machine cut it, resulting in all sorts of weirdnesses. So this time I'm just going to lightly tighten it and hope it doesn't go flying across the machine. There we go, much better. All right, I have the first fully functional prototype put together, and it's looking pretty good. It works just right. It feels good in the hand. Using the finger stop to control the tape, it could be improved on a little bit, but it does work. So I think I just need to tweak the radius of that curve there, but otherwise, perfect and beautiful, and I love it. I have some changes I need to make to the code in both operations. I have some design changes I need to do, but I am definitely calling this a win, and with just a few more iterations, it'll be Design the Everything quality product. So I'm really happy with how this looks and how it feels, and I can't wait to get these into production. At this point, I'm just gonna do a whole bunch of iterations off camera, and I'll check back in with you when it's done. Well, at this point, I was hoping to record the wrap up for this video, but that's not where we're at yet. I have spent days on these tape measures, and I have 5 of them. Just 5. Well, okay, I have 5 and 3 halves, but of course they're all the same half. I have been scrapping part after part after part after part after part, trying to make these tape measures, and my method just isn't working. The issue seems to be clamping these thin little walls in the soft jaws. If I clamp them too tight, the floor there puckers up and kind of goes up towards the end mill, and too much material gets removed, leaving nice little holes in the part. If you don't clamp it tight enough, the parts go flying across the machine, which there's 2 somewhere in there too that I wasn't able to show you. I've broken tools, I've scrapped parts. I'm glad I bought that bar. Oh, I don't remember where I said this. I bought a bar of aluminum, so at least I'm not running out of material. This isn't gonna work anymore. I need to find a better way. This is how I found the mill this morning from the night run. 2 parts that are loose and a broken tool. These ones at least look okay, but both of these ones, actually these might be usable too somehow. I have no idea how this happened. I broke the surfacing tool. I must have broken it on this screw because this would have been loose and free to bounce around on me because the parts don't actually show any marks. I can still use those. Well, I guess that's good. But if I do the same thing again, it's still not gonna work. So I need to find a better way. The other catch is the carabiners are here and I need to start making these like yesterday. I have to tear down the setup on the mill and find a way to interwork the tape measures with the carabiners. So in order to do that efficiently, I called up a friend who had a local friend who had a Saunders Machine Work pallet. Yeah. And so I'm gonna do the tape measure fixture on here. In this way I can interwork it as I'm doing the carabiners. So like right now I still need to design this fixture. So I'm gonna start a pallet of carabiners, and while that's running, I can work on the design for this. That way we're maximizing the spindle uptime on this machine, because right now it is my biggest bottleneck. And so it needs to be running all the time. If you wanna optimize throughput, you optimize your bottleneck. The machine is my bottleneck. I need to optimize for the machine. So I'm gonna get some carabiners running, and then I'll start working on the design for the tape measure fixture. Oh yeah, that means I gotta tear all this down first. It is a couple days later, and I have spent far too long on this tape measure project. I've been running carabiners in the background, but I've also been spending just hours and hours and hours in CAM and CAD trying to get a better fixture. I need to make 5 parts to make this happen. Here's the setup for the first part. I did it offline on a pallet so that the machine could keep running carabiners, but that just finished the cycle, so I'm gonna get this swapped in. All right, this should be relatively quick and easy. Famous last words. Cycle start. Now we're actually done. The next part looks exactly like this one, at least for Op 1, though they get different in Op 2. So I bet you guys didn't expect this next scene to be outside. I have a lot of time and energy and effort invested in these tape measures, and they're not working. I haven't been able to get that new fixture done because of carabiner production, and the carabiner production is really what I need to be focusing on right now. So I'm giving up on them. I'm calling the project done on my end. Except I'm still going forwards with the tape measures. I'm just not going to be the one making them. I could get there with enough time, but I mean, I'm not really good at this part here. I don't really have the experience to get this complicated of a part with this complicated work holding done in a short amount of time to be able to get them to the Patreons for this month. So I'm calling it, I'm gonna end this project, except I'm outsourcing the tape measures. So my buddy Harrison at Precision Ingenuity, he's got a lot more skill and a lot more experience here. And you know, doing job shop stuff is what he does. So I'm gonna send the files over to him. I already have a quote. And he's gonna make the tape measures for me so that I can still get them out to Patreons, I can still sell them. But it's not a core product. It's not gonna be a core design the everything product. And so it just makes more sense for me to outsource those. I've got a lot of time and materials and resources invested in them, but when it's not working, and you just have to know when to give it up. So maybe I'll revisit these sometime in the future, but it just makes so much more sense to have Harrison do them. And gosh, honestly, for a lot of this stuff, I probably should spend more time doing the research and development myself and outsource more. That's not something that I do enough at the moment. We'll let Harrison, who's better at the production work, handle the production for me, and then I can focus on the design and the marketing and everything else that goes into these products. So I really like working with him. I know he does a good job, and I think this is the best decision going forwards. So sorry for this unexpected and kind of random end to the video. I know it's not really a satisfying conclusion, but this is the way business works sometimes. It does not go to plan. You have to get over that sunk cost fallacy and make a hard decision sometime. So I'm done doing the tape measures myself. I'll let Harrison take care of those. I'm not going to be doing a prototype of the month box for all my Patreons this month, but I will do a double box next month. They'll get the tape measure in addition to some other things, kind of more on the artsy side that I already had planned. So sorry guys. Thank you guys for watching and sticking with me when things go well and when things don't. And I'll see you in the next one.